Hi, Jim Evans. Welcome to Loose Change. As always, please allow faster viewers to play through, if you can. Thanks for joining us. We have a very special guest who's going to join us in just a few moments, so hang tight for that. But first, Greg, you know, as always, I look for funny, offbeat stories, especially locally. And this one, I think, fits in that category. This actually happened. You may have heard of this a few weeks ago. A guy locally here robbed another guy and took his wallet and also made him take off his shoes so he could smell his feet. This actually happened. Now, not to make light of any criminal incident, but let's face it, this guy that did this, he needs professional help for sure. He's either got to get with a doctor of psychiatry or Dr. Scholl's, one of the two, or maybe both, you know. That happened, folks. Look it up. I don't know, it gets crazier all the time. How about the weather we've had recently? The rain, the constant rain and heavy rain, monsoon-like. And then we get blasted with this heat wave. As of the taping of the show today, it was a scorcher. Mid-afternoon, the feels like was -1 at the Five Below store. That's how hot it was. The last couple shows, of course, I've talked about getting another car. Greg, you know about that. And when I bought the car, they still had to do something to it, but they didn't have the part yet. So I had to take it back down. Honda Marysville, boy, there's something, that's for sure. So they did the fix, and well, it was a little more than I had anticipated. They put in a brand new flux capacitor. It was supposed to be just a capacitor. I don't know, Greg, I didn't think I was going 88 miles an hour, so I don't know what happened. Speaking of speeding, and it's always someone for the Browns. You may have heard this. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders got cited twice in like 3 weeks for driving 91 miles an hour and then 101 miles an hour. Now, the Browns last year had trouble scoring. So they really need to bring in guys who can help them score more points, not get more points on their license. Come on. And this guy's a 5th-round pick and getting all this attention. I don't know. Not off to the best start. Since we last talked, we have a new pope. He's the first American, as you probably know, from Chicago, a baseball fan. And White Sox is his team, or maybe was, because I think perhaps after this appointment, he might be leaning a little bit more towards the Cardinals. I would think that would very well be the case. Greg, speaking of baseball, I was rummaging around at home and I came upon this clip of me when I played baseball a while back in the outfield. And, well, take a look at this and notice how locked in I was on this fly ball. You've heard the expression, you should see the other guy. You're looking at him. I was the other guy. That's what the wall said. Man, I'm still dizzy from that. And of course, as we wrap it up here, the NBA season came to an end. Oklahoma City winning its first NBA championship. And with that, I was watching some of the game and bouncing around channels, and I came upon the show Basketball Wives. So I watched an episode. It ended up being the same thing over and over again. Non-stop rebound relationships. Hey, stick around. Former basketball coach Jeff Hammerton joins us next here on Loose Change.
Thinking about switching to 5G home internet? Think again. Unlike Zoom from Armstrong, 5G home internet is delivered by a cell tower. The further away you are, or the more devices connected to that tower, the slower your internet is. Cell phone providers also play favorites. When their networks get busy, calling and texting wins, and your home internet pays the price. Stick with Armstrong to get more data, more speed, and internet whenever you need it, not whenever they want. Armstrong, keeping you connected.
Welcome back. You see, I wasn't joking around. This time with a very special guest joining us. He is the one, the only Jeff HAMMERTON. He's the athletic director at Boardman High School and longtime PA announcer. We'll talk a little bit about that at the football games. But thanks so much for coming in and giving us your time and to talk about what you've been doing and what's going on with the Spartans and what we like to have our victims or our guests do off the top. For those who don't know, give us a little background about yourself. You went to school, you're a Boardman alumnus, and how your career path took shape.
Yeah, well, I graduated from Boardman in 1992. I was a multi-sport athlete there and just loved it. I played basketball under Coach Dan Gorski.
Yeah.
And then when I went back to coach, I ended up being his freshman coach, so that was great. And I also played tennis at Boardman. I went to Kent State University, and my plan was never to go into education. I was actually a TV major.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I thought I'd come out and ESPN was waiting. I'd be on Sports Center. They'd just say, hey, come on, here's a job.
I'm waiting. I'm still waiting.
Right. So it didn't really work out that way. And I got engaged to my wife of 20 plus years now.
Wow, great.
And she was a teacher at Boardman.
Okay.
And she said how great it was. So I went back to school, got my teaching certificate, and started teaching at the elementary school and jumped right into coaching.
You were a math teacher?
I was a math teacher, yeah. 24 years at Robinwood Lane
That's
Elementary.
what I thought. What was that experience like?
It was great. I worked for 3 unbelievable bosses there, Jane Howes, Don Robinson, and at the end of my career at Robinwood, Billy Joe Johnson, who was wonderful, and they allowed me to coach. So, my school day would end, and they'd say, just go to the high school and do your thing, and that really helped pave the path where, ended up being the athletic director of Boardman.
Do you miss being in the classroom at all?
I do a little bit. Yeah, people ask me that all the time.
Yeah.
You don't miss the Mondays.
Okay.
Like Sunday nights when you're preparing for that week, but you don't miss the kids. Elementary is a great level. 4th grade was ideal. They're 10 and 11 years old. They still love their teacher. They still love coming to school. They have great attitudes. But with the new role being athletic director and out of the classroom, I figured it's a change for my last so many years in the education field.
What was your coaching experience like as you look back?
So I coached just about everything
Yeah.
at Boardman. I started as the freshman boys basketball coach under Coach Gorski. I was the boys tennis coach for some time. I was the girls tennis coach for some time. I joke all the time with Alyssa Birch, Pat's wife, who was the basketball coach at Boardman. I had to sit in when all her assistants were out of town once and actually help her coach volleyball once. I sat in, coached bowling once. So I got to do all these different things. But so started my basketball career with Coach Gorski, and that was awesome. And then I went over to the girls' side, and I got mentored by Coach Michella. And anyone who's ever covered Coach Michella, there's always people have this perception of him a certain way, but they don't see him day to day. And I learned so much. I was fortunate to learn all those years under him. And then when he got ill there for a little bit, and I came as the interim coach, and then just took over for him. So coaching girls basketball for I believe 9 seasons and 2 stints. I did 7, became the assistant AD, and they didn't let you coach. And then the last, I went back and coached there.
Everybody says that I have that join us here, on the coaching side. It's all about the kids.
It is. And when you talk about coaching, people come in, you ask do you miss the classroom? I also have everyone come in and say, do you miss the coaching day part of it? And my answer is always the same. It surprises people. I really don't miss the games. I miss the day to day, being with the kids every day. The practicing, putting in the game plan, and the bus rides. And even though you complain all the time, it's January, it's 2 degrees below zero, and you got to get on a bus at 3:45 for a 7 o'clock game. You complain, but those bus rides with the kids are great. That's the stuff I miss. The day-to-day with the kids, the practices, the breaking down the film and stuff.
And I told someone that I played high school football, and again, what I reflect back on, what really, still sticks with me, not the games, it was practice. As crazy that might sound, but there was that's where we bonded, and there was just so much that went on, and that's what I miss more than anything, as opposed to the game. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And man, you've had the great opportunity to coach with some other great people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not only like my staff. Once I got into coaching, learning from Coach Gorski and Coach Michelle, are two legends at Boardman.
Yes, right.
And then I ended up with Coach Michelle's grandson, little Brian.
Oh, really?
Brian Terleski was one of my assistants.
Wow.
And he was an unbelievable golfer at Boardman.
Yes.
He's now down at YSU helping them, but he knows the game of basketball so well. Donnie Riccatelli, and then you have your ex-players come back and coach with you, like a Lauren Gabriel. Lauren Pavlansky's been around the program. So it's just to have all those people coach with you, it means a lot. It really does.
You again had the opportunity then to get involved on the AD side with Marco Marinucci, and what was that like working with him when you got into it?
So I was actually on the committee. They put coaches on the committee to hire the new AD when Denise Gorski left, and so we had like 40 applicants, believe it or not, applied for the job, and we interviewed I believe 12 of them. And Marco's interview was great. Marco had unbelievable experience. He's been, he was a teacher in the city. He was an admin at Matthews, Wyndham, not Matthews, at Wyndham. And then he came to Boardman. And watching him in the interview, I thought he could be such a huge success. But I thought I could be a huge aid for him because I knew everybody, where he was coming from
Correct.
Wyndham.
Yeah.
So I decided that I wanted to become the assistant AD. So I applied for that job and I interviewed for it, and was lucky enough to get chosen. And from day one, I was by Marco's side. And I hope that he would say, if anyone were to talk to him, Jeff was a big help at bridging those relationships with people he didn't know, and we really worked as a team. And it led to. I say this about Marco all the time. He didn't micromanage me. He gave you jobs, and those jobs were to prepare you for his seat at some point. So when I took the role of the athletic director, I'd already had some experience scheduling, talking to assigners to get the referees, the umpires, and things, and all that was invaluable.
And you were still able to do PA for football.
I was. He always allowed me to. Yeah, he allowed me to do that, and I enjoyed that.
Oh, gosh,
I really
you
did.
were great at it.
Thanks. It was so much fun. There's a fine line when you're doing the PA. You don't want to take away from the game.
Yes.
You don't want to take away from the kids.
Right.
But at the same time, you want to make it exciting enough for the people in the stands. So I
did that. Yes.
I would come up with that first down and stuff like that. And sometimes it's tough. On the leaner years when the team isn't great.
Right.
You still got to have that energy
right.
every night. And then when the team's really good, the crowd kind of feeds off of it. And it was a blast. I did it for 20 some years.
Yeah, a little bit of broadcasting there. Yeah, for sure. What might be some of the things you took from coaching into your job now as AD, the things that you learned from coaching that you apply to this position?
Well, first of all, coaching is great, but it's a thankless job. The amount of hours that they put in and the complaints they get. Nowadays, with the emails and it always starts the same way. This isn't about playing time, but I'm not normally one that says but. So I really empathize with our coaches. Being a coach myself, so I say to them that I'm going to have your back on just about everything. There's a couple of things I can't defend, but if you're doing your job and you're out there for Best of Kids and you make a decision, especially in a sport where playing time, some sports it's pretty easy. When I coached tennis, you did challenge matches, you beat him, you're the number one player. You didn't beat anybody, so you play JV. Where you're coaching basketball, you've got to make some tough decisions. Only 5 people can be out there. You've got 15 on the court, and if you've got 10 that aren't really getting much playing time, and they've all got 2 parents, you've got 20 people who aren't real happy with you. So, I being a coach for as long as I was as an athletic director, I really, really support our coaches.
And every coach we have come in here, and I ask about the challenges. What's maybe the number one challenge for you now today? And not to, everybody's their own thing, but each and every one of them says dealing with the parents.
Yeah.
It's the reality of the
It's so
job.
different. When we played sports back in our time, there wasn't all this travel and
Right.
AAU and
That's a great
JO
point. Right.
and when we played baseball, it was Little League.
Yeah.
You played Little League. If you made the All-Star team, you played
That was it.
in the district, and the Little League World Series was where you wanted to go. And I said, nowadays these teams are playing. There's communities that don't even play Little League baseball. Everybody travels,
Yeah.
and because everybody's traveling, the parents kind of get the not false sense, but they always play on that team and they always bat third on that team, and now they're on the high school team and they're maybe batting ninth or they're a rotation
That's a
player.
great point.
So a lot of that stuff is, again, going back, I don't want to sound like when we were kids, but we played multiple sports. And another thing,
But it wasn't almost year-round.
Yes. Now, if you want to be a baseball player, sometimes we have kids that don't play football because they're playing baseball and fall ball.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of challenges that when you talk to a coach, most coaches that I talk to, we love our kids that play multiple sports, and we want to share our athletes.
Right.
Nowadays that isn't always happening.
Yeah. The dynamic has shifted a little bit.
It really has, yeah.
Over the last decade or so. We have to take a break. You can hang around, right?
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
All right, we'll take a brief time out. Back with Jeff Hammerton right after we do this.
Supercharge your internet. Only Zoom Extreme from Armstrong combines unlimited data with whole home Wi-Fi at the fastest speeds possible. Zoom Extreme from Armstrong.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Evans, and we continue on with Jeff Hammerton, Athletic Director at Boardman High School, and otherwise. Talk about all the different things that you oversee now in terms of athletic, individual athletic teams and programs.
Yeah, most people don't understand is how many sports we do have at Boardman.
Yeah.
I was doing the numbers the other day. We have 23 varsity sports, and with the addition of wheelchair basketball that we just started this past, not this year, the year before, we're up to 24 sports. And, it makes for busy fall, winter, and spring. Everyone was telling me that first year, wait till you hit June, you really get some downtime. But we were so fortunate this year. We had an amazing June. We had a baseball team that won the Steel Valley Conference outright. We had a girls track team that won not the Steel Valley, I'm sorry, the AAC. AAC. We had our girls track team win the AAC. We had our softball team share the AAC championship with Fitch and then make an amazing run into the state Final Four. And our boys tennis team also shared the AAC with Campfield and won the AAC tournament. So we had an unbelievable spring where the season's pushed out a little further than most years, but it was great. At the end of May and into early June, I got to go see our softball team play in the Final Four in Akron, and then I get right in the car and drive down and see Sarah Barrow throw in the state track meet on Saturday in Columbus. So it was a lot of fun.
Your job is pretty much year round.
That's correct. Yeah.
You don't get summers off like you did when you were teaching. But has it been what you thought it would be here, entering your second year? I mean, you already had an idea, but being behind the wheel now yourself, has it met your expectations? Or
it really has.
Exceeded?
It's a challenge every day. Sometimes you think you're going in, and it's mid-June. I'm going in, and I don't have much to do today. And then you open up the computer, click on your emails, and you see all this stuff going. And then scheduling, especially for football, is always something that you just, as soon as you schedule for 2025, you want to make sure 2026 is in line, 2027, you want to be scheduled all the way out there as well. So scheduling is always something that makes it a little bit of a challenge. But I'm very fortunate where, because I was the assistant AD for as many years, I've made a lot of relationship with other ADs in the area, not just the ones in the AAC, so I can reach out. What do you have for week 3?
Yeah.
Or, hey, could we move you from week 7 to week 2 because of this?
Yeah.
Things like that really work out.
How much of the coaches work with you in scheduling?
So you always have some coaches who like to do their own, and then you have the other coaches that are like, hey, can you find the teams and then let me know? It's just a matter of how a coach feels. When I was the girls basketball coach, I always went and saw Mrs. Gorski and said, here's some teams that are that we might see in the tournament. Maybe we can get them in the beginning of the year, but if you can't get them, fill it in however you want. And she would always give me a call and say, hey, so and so wants to play you. What do you want to do, and things like that.
Over the years, I'd always hear people talking to me individually and otherwise, the media, complaining about why does this team play that team,
Yes.
and then they play them, and it's like you have no idea how difficult that can be to make it all come together the way you want.
Absolutely, and again, you go back to football. They're just some teams. There's always well, we might not want to play them, or especially at Boardman where we're not open enrollment, and we sometimes have our kids go to other schools. They decide from their 8th to 9th grade year that hey, maybe we're going to this school. And then you don't want to play those schools because they have our kids on them and things. So that's one of the reasons why we might not play so and so during a certain point and things like that.
What's a typical day like for you, though, during, school year now in this position?
That's one of the best parts of the job. I love seeing the kids. So my office is right next to the cafeteria and across from the gym. So normally my morning's filled with kind of handling from the night before's business. We had a home game and just getting everything straight in the morning and making sure that the events today are all lined up. I'm always nervous that an opposing team might not show up on time, or umpires or referees might not know exactly where to go. So I'm always checking those things to make sure we're all in line there. Then once lunch hits at the school, I always go in and make sure that I see there's 3 lunches in there that I stop in and see, our student athletes. Especially if I was at a game the night before and a kid did something great.
Yeah,
I like to make a big deal
cool,
about that in there. And also being not so far removed as the girls basketball coach, I've built relationships with those kids, especially on the last couple of years coaching. So I'm able to go in and talk to them every day. A lot of them were on the softball team, so we really enjoyed that ride stuff. And then, the afternoons prepping for the night's games. Like we said, we go back to how many events or how many teams we have at Boardman. There in a fall, we could have at any point in the fall, we can have a soccer game going on inside the stadium. I could have a volleyball game going on in the gym. I've got to figure out where we're going to put the football team for practice because we've got soccer going on in the stadium. So, you're always kind of running around and getting things done in the afternoon and evening.
Like for football, the biggest game, obviously, what's a typical week or game night like for you? I mean, you've got to there's so many moving parts and so many people involved. Or do you have to get volunteers as well, and you take care of all that?
And people take that for granted. They show up on Friday.
Right.
They show up on Friday night and they're like, "Oh, the lights go on," and we've got a game. So
a lot of stuff.
Always on the week before we play, I normally Thursday or Friday send an email to the opposing team. And I just lay out all the logistics. When your buses come in, try to get a time when their buses come in, and I have volunteers that are waiting outside the visitors' locker room to usher their student athletes out of their bus and into there, and then get the buses parked. I have to have ticket takers at 3 gates, multiple ticket takers. The OHSA went to non-cash for a little bit, so we offer both options at our place. So I have to have the scanners ready for the people that like that. I also have to have cash option at every ticket at there. And then my assistant AD Rick Seipert does a great job. I have him reach out to the officials so they know where to park, where to go in their locker room, when to come out. I always have a time, everything timed out. So at this time, you take the field. At this time, you guys come off the field. This time, the band. Because you're also moving parts with the band.
Absolutely.
Because if a game doesn't start at 7 o'clock, you can get flagged for delay a game. So everything's timed out, and everybody has that ahead of time so they know. But there's a lot of people that go into it. I had to fill my spot as a PA announcer, so I wrote Pat Birch into that. And I said, Pat, you're going to take over. So he has a spotter up there. I have a guy who works the clock. I have a guy that works the play clock. I have a statistician. All those pieces come together.
And then you have to put up with us, the media, all the requests that come up broadcast.
But I'm very fortunate with our press box. At the old stadium, if you remember, there was not as many sections there. It was everybody at the media and the clock and the microphone was all in one, and then you had the home team and away team. Well, now we have 5 sections in that press box. So when you come in, you have the home coaches, then you have our student-run television station, then all the my workers there, then the whole media one, and then the visiting coaches.
And there's more broadcast media now to deal with as well. And it was a challenge, I know, for us during COVID to find, places where we can get in, where there's space, and I know that's a challenge, but obviously that's behind us now.
But you're right with all the options, radio. Again, going back to when we all played, games were on radio, and you turned your radio on and you listened to it. Now, you have MyYTV. They're doing Game of the Week,
right.
And everybody's now got some type of streaming service.
Right.
Hey, if you don't put a game on streaming service,
right.
I get complaints. Wait, this game's not on. Like, it could be any sport. But you're not streaming your soccer game tonight. Well, so yeah, you're there's so many more people doing games that does add an extra layer to it.
Absolutely. Well, you did some color for the basketball Game of the Week on KBN on 27. You were terrific. I watched as many games as I could, to catch a few minutes here and there. But you did a great job with that. Basketball's not easy to do from the color side because it's so up and down. You don't have much time to get in, but you were great.
Thank you. And that's where the schooling came in a little bit at Kent State.
Sure.
When I was at Kent, I was the voice of the female basketball team. So they did games on a station called TV2 out there.
Okay, great.
And I was the guy that did the games. And they did them tape delayed, and then they would play them after the game, 11 o'clock or whatever. And so I got that experience. When you're working with Chad, you had to fill your time to talk and fill it. And I thought we really played off each other pretty well because you don't want to talk over him, and you're exactly right. Basketball's up and down, but you feel those breaks, and he does set you up pretty well too. During a timeout, he'll be like, "All right, coach, what do they say in there in that timeout?" So those were things, but I absolutely love that. I had a blast doing it. I did it for 3 years, and I got to go all over Western PA, games in Ohio, and see some of the best players. And I mean, we did some great games. They were a lot of fun.
It was great to be back in the gym again.
It really was.
We're running out of time here, but how's the football stadium project coming along? Is that at completion, or there's still some steps or things to be done?
It's basically completed.
Okay.
But there's always stuff that needs to be done. Now we're looking at, everything's good, we're ready to go, and now we're going to probably need new turf at some point.
Already.
Yeah, already. That's been out there for 10, 11 seasons, and you want to replace that about that time frame. So we'll be looking at that project next. But as
no cheap.
No, that is no.
Greg has the money. He maybe give a big loan on that.
We need it. I might get you up, Greg. But yeah, so that'll probably be the next big project in there. We just put a new video board in there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you've seen the scoreboard. Well, it was acting up a little bit here and there, so we put a new one in there. We have a new scoreboard there this year. The place is great.
Yes, it is.
We hosted. Not only did we play our home games, but we were fortunate enough to host the Poland South Range regional game there last year, and terrible downpour and rain, or that place would have been jam-packed that night. But because we have such a state-of-the-art facility, it gives us the opportunity to do those big games.
Well, that's great for sure. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I can't thank you enough for coming in. And the Boardman athletic programs are in terrific hands.
Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate it.
And we'll look forward to see you at football this
year.
So, all right.
Fitch game. We'll see you there.
Yep, for sure. Maybe if we can squeeze in another one, I don't know. But,
great.
But we'll see you then for sure.
All right.
All right. We'll be back to wrap it up right after we do this.
The Armstrong Neighborhood Channel is your home for sports, community events, and award-winning shows from all of our Armstrong neighborhoods. Catch up on events happening in your area, dive into a new hobby, or explore the fascinating places in your region on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. Check your local listings or tune to Channel 100 to see what's happening in your backyard. Visit us on YouTube for custom playlists and a full library of your favorite neighborhood channel shows. Everything local lives on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thanks so much to Jeff Hammerton for his time. Best of luck to he and Boardman Athletics in the coming season. Thanks as always to Greg Roden, all of you. Check us out again here on Armstrong and, of course, YouTube. And as we leave, I want to pass along my thoughts to a friend of mine who left us much too soon recently, and pass along my continued thoughts to his family, the family of Tom Noodle Lawrence. Everyone knew him as Noodle, and if you're an amateur golfer, that golf ball, Noodle, that was named after him. Check it out on golf.com. You'll see the whole story. Just a one-of-a-kind, unique guy. He will not be forgotten, and we miss him.